I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Our guest is Police Chief Bill Pittman. Bill, welcome. Thanks for coming back to see us.
Thanks for bringing me.
Given the time of year, we want to talk about the 4th of July. Because I know
seems to be on everybody's mind right now.
Well, I think it's important to get the message out of what's going on. And I know you've done an interview with the paper and so forth, but hopefully we'll reach some more people. And they will be part of the crowd that is respectful of Nantucket on the 4th of July weekend.
Right.
So tell us, what are the plans this year?
Well, essentially the plan is very similar to prior years. We have numerous areas that are blocked that we're having some traffic parking controls and stuff put in place, and that's mainly to keep the access roads open and also to keep the impact down on surrounding neighborhoods to reduce it somewhat. So it's very similar to that. The only thing that's really different than prior years is we're getting some extra manpower from the state police and the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office, who are going to allow us to focus more on the troublemakers, so to speak. And we're going to actively address things like people giving alcohol to underage kids drinking. Last year, if you remember, the dune out at Nobedeer got trashed very badly. And I mean, it was almost an ecological disaster. It was so torn up. We've got a plan in place to protect that dune.
You're putting up some fencing along there.
Yeah, almost 2,000 feet of barrier fence is going to be installed, and the Airport Commission has designated that as a no trespassing zone for two reasons. One, because it's right at the end of an approach runway, and two, because it's a fragile dune area. And so that'll be actively enforced. Anybody caught trespassing there will be removed from the beach.
What about the underage drinking? Now, those kids, do they bring the alcohol with them, or do they usually get it once they're there?
Well, it's a combination of both. I mean, there's some that are able to, because they have fake IDs or maybe they look old enough or whatever, stop on their way to the beach and purchase.
Stock up.
Yeah, and stock up. You know, I have to give credit to the packaged liquor stores in Nantucket. They really do try hard to not sell to underage kids, but there's a lot of tricks these kids use, and so we're helping them out this year a little bit. We're having officers actually pay attention to the package stores, not just on the 4th of July, but all weekend. You'll see a police officer maybe standing at the Islander or something, and they're not there because the Islanders do anything wrong. They're there
as a deterrent?
As a deterrent for those who may come in and try to pull one over on the Islander. So they're going to be there for that. We're also, you know, there's a lot of these kids come from up in the Boston area, Wellesley, Newton, different towns like that. And they get here and all they got's a boat ticket and a bathing suit. And they make their way to Nobedeer Beach, and there's plenty of alcohol there that manage to get into their hands. And that's why we're focusing on those who are giving alcohol to the youth. So if we catch somebody doing that, they'll be removed from the beach. And when I say removed from the beach, I generally mean they'll be arrested.
There was some talk last year after the 4th of July when there was an incident with a vehicle on the beach that got trashed one way or another.
Right.
That some of those primarily responsible were Nantucket kids. Is that a fair?
That's a fair analysis of that. And that's the thing that the people in Nantucket, we've been telling them. They have to be aware it's not just off-islanders that are coming and doing this. There are a fair number of Nantucket kids that are involved. We're warning people that they'll be treated the same way as anybody from off-island. So if they are part of the problem, they will be dealt with in the same manner.
Have you tried to do any pre-education with the high school or in that respect?
Well, we have. Our school resource officers have been talking about this for some time now, and actually we've reached out through social media and the school resource officers in the various communities up and around Boston.
Yeah, I heard that. There was a word going around in Newton or somewhere like that.
Getting the word out that, hey, this is different, there's a problem, and we're not going to tolerate it. You know, so we've been doing that type of educational thing. The problem is, once the alcohol, none of those kids come there with the idea of causing a problem and being the problem. They're just coming for the party. And the problem is, once they start drinking, their rational decision-making processes break down. And that's when things like dancing on cars and using one of those T-shirt guns to shoot somebody in the face, that's when they sound like good ideas at that point.
Or drinking themselves silly.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're dealing with two different frames of mind from when they get there to when they leave, and we're hoping to intervene and stop that end result this year.
There used to be a big party here called the Medoma Jam.
Before my time,
Right.
but I've heard about it.
And somehow the town shut that down.
Yeah, well, things were a little bit different
Right.
then. They used a lot of different tactics back then. We've discussed that in detail. But quite frankly, they used horses, they used 100 police officers or more, and they went in there and basically just busted it up. And I can say in law enforcement, we used to do that for a lot of different events, but the world's changed a little bit. Now we have to be a little bit more, softer, I should say. Everywhere we go now, we assume there are cameras looking at us.
Which there are.
There are, absolutely. So we do nothing anymore without assuming there's cameras, which is a good thing because it kind of makes sure that not only do my officers follow the rules, but also the people that are there generally comply a lot better. So, we're the old ways of doing things are not appropriate anymore, and we're doing it in softer. And by doing that, we're making the area less attractive. We're making the access to the area less attractive. We're trying to discourage it from happening rather than letting it build up and then going out and busting it up.
Speaking of cameras, what about drones? Have you seen any sign of drone use out there, and what are you prepared to do about that?
Well, the drone use out there is a very serious problem. We have not seen it.
Maybe I shouldn't suggest it.
Well, we'll deal with it immediately. I mean, that equipment would be seized immediately, and the individual would be dealt with. Our three concerns in that respect are drones, fireworks, and kites. None of the three are acceptable. Right. And last year, we actually had somebody send up a red flare just not too long before a JetBlue flight showed up on an approach to runway 6, which wouldn't be a very good thing.
No.
We actually expected to get a call from the tower saying, clear it out, but they apparently didn't see it. But we did. And we went right down there and immediately tried to deal with that. But that is one problem that even over the years we really haven't seen much of. That's just was kind of the rarity.
I understand there's something like 400,000 registered drones in this country now.
I can believe it.
And probably as many unregistered ones out there. So it would be a concern if they were sending up drones along the beach.
Yeah, well, anywhere in the airport traffic area is definitely a concern. Myself, I'm a licensed private pilot, and I completely understand the thrill of flying, the thrill of the drones, and all this stuff. But I also completely understand the concern to the aviation community. And what happens to an aircraft from a drone strike is largely an unknown right now. There's been a couple of large planes that have gotten a couple of dents in them as a result of drone strikes that I'm hearing about. Nobody knows what's going to happen if you hit one of those fabric winged airplanes out there. It might take the wing right off of it.
Or if it ended up in the engine.
Exactly. Yeah. Either way, it's not going to be a good outcome.
No, it's not going to happen, we hope.
Right.
Well, we wish you well with your efforts on the 4th of July. Can we talk a little bit more about the island and the crime scene? And we've talked about this before,
Sure.
the drug scene.
Yep.
Just sort of get a little bit of an update on how you see things.
It's, it's in one respect, it's just the same old continuing. Everything on Nantucket kind of goes in cycles. We see increases in alcohol-related criminal activity, and by that I mean people going into people's houses, falling asleep on couches, things like that, as the population increases and as we get into the summer. We tend to see more break-ins, things like that, prior to the season opening up. And that may be because a lot of the homes are still vacant and people are making their moves before people come back. But and then we tend to see...
Are they looking for alcohol? Or are they looking...
generally, they're looking for drugs, money, or alcohol, or something like that.
So there's not as much as there used to be of TVs and carpets. And
they're hard to get rid of here. Yeah. It's difficult to get rid of defense stuff from the island, but they're generally looking for things that are less large than that.
And easier to
get rid of and deal with. What you find most of the time, I think, today is most of your burglaries, your thefts, things like that tend to be related to people that are having drug problems. They're trying to find cash, they're trying to find drugs, or they're trying to find something that they can quickly get rid of to try to get some money to get some drugs. The drug problem is just as bad here as it is anywhere else. I think we have a little bit of an advantage in that if somebody can't find it right now, it's not as easy to go to the next town over and find it. But people manage to get it here, and they manage to.
Do you have concerns about the new fast ferry route to New Bedford?
Well, it's my understanding that a police chief in the past said yes to that question, and it caused quite a stir. But I'm a realist. I think that the drugs are getting here in many different ways, and they'll get here just as easily on that boat as they do on any other boat. And so,
your officers now are equipped with an antidote,
Narcan.
Narcan for. Are you comfortable with that? Would you? I'm sure you probably prefer not to have to do it, but are you?
Absolutely. We'd prefer not to be in that business, but the fact is, it's a life-saving tool, and it has been useful to save lives. Right now, the odds are medical emergency happens, a drug overdose. The odds are a police officer is going to be the first at the scene for public safety. The EMS is just simply not set up on Nantucket to have that quicker response time for those all over the island. So just logistically, it's likely an officer is going to get there, and the sooner the antidote is delivered, the more probable the success. So we have used it. I can't tell you the exact number of times. It's been over a dozen times.
And how long a period? A year?
Just since the first of the year, probably. Yeah. Now, where I do have some concerns is we've been hearing that many of the heroin addicts now are starting to use the Narcan as a way to save themselves, so to speak. So instead of just having it around as an emergency, it's like, oh, I can get higher because my friend here is going to make sure I get
what you use for a bee sting kind of thing.
That my friend's going to make sure that I get the Narcan. Well, what we've been running into on, I know of at least 2 occasions now, we've gone to an overdose and the individual improperly administered the Narcan and the person's almost died. So that's
is Narcan available generally?
It is. There's been an effort in Massachusetts to make it available to the general public, so that if you have a family member, or friend, or something, you can do it. And that's, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. If it works, it works. But
it's also an enabler.
It's also an enabler. So it's going to take a whole system approach to deal with this. And the challenge Nantucket has is our isolation. And our transportation system, because we get an individual, they need to get into treatment immediately if there's any chance that they're going to have success at this. But what oftentimes happens here is we get somebody, we save them, they get to the ER, the ER does their evaluation, the drug counselors do their evaluation, they say this person needs to be in an in-house treatment facility, they get a note that says, okay, show up in 3 days or 4 days or 5 days over at such and such. They got 3, 4, or 5 days to party before they're going to dry out, and that's when the tragedies generally happen. So it needs to be able to get there needs to be more beds available, and there needs to be more on-island services that they can intervene immediately on these things to have any success. And to be honest with you, the long-term survival rate of heroin addicts is not very good. And that concerns us all.
Sure.
But we all know people. All of us have family members, friends who have persons that have become addicted to opioids in their family because of the way that this whole epidemic started.
You mean from the pain?
From the pain management.
So-called pain management.
Right. But and I don't want to blame doctors by any means, but in the medical community. They were told, they were rated, they were ranked on how quality their care was based on how happy the patients were. Okay, a patient that's in pain isn't very happy,
not happy,
you know,
right.
And so you know the system kind of
But a patient who's
outsmarted
not in pain
itself.
is too happy.
It's too happy, yeah. But unfortunately, the system I think outsmarted itself in this case.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us about what's going on in the world of the Nantucket Police Department?
Well, we're really busy. I think the most exciting news, it's not really dealing with the police officers, but on our harbor master's side, was our lifeguard program hits the beaches next Wednesday, and the harbor master announced last night that we were granted certification as an open water life-saving organization from the United States Life-Saving Association, USLA. And we're one of only, I think we're the only Massachusetts community.
What does that mean?
Well, there's a set of training standards and equipment standards that the USLA has adopted. You see, USLA certified lifeguard programs are things like LA lifeguard programs down in Florida, where they have the large lifeguard program stuff. Those organizations are USLA certified typically. They've achieved a certain level of standardization and training level.
Yeah.
And about 4 years ago, we made a commitment to have a first-class program, and we've been working towards it. We've got a group of lifeguard supervisors that have come back year after year. We've got a very large number of returning lifeguards.
How many are there altogether?
There's 47, I think, something like that. Don't hold me to that number, but it's something like that. And they worked hard, and we're the first Massachusetts department, and I think there's only 4 in New England that have achieved that standard, and that was a tremendous accomplishment, given the diversity of the jurisdiction that we have, such a large area.
Between the lifeguards, the community police officers, and so forth, you must have close to 100.
That's right about it.
Summer.
We have dock workers, lifeguards, the CSOs, the reserve officers. We got just right at about 100 seasonal workers. Well, you know, that's there's another one of the lifeguard program on it. We made a real effort to get local kids involved in that program. Sheila and Brianna and Steve Lamb and those guys last year created what they call junior lifeguard program, and high school students can sign up for it. It's like a week camp. Gets them exposed to it. This year, I think 6 of our lifeguards are graduates of that, and there's 15 or 16 total Nantucket Kids that are now lifeguards. There's
fabulous.
There's another good chunk whose families are summer residents here who are now lifeguards. We only ended up having to house, I think, 20 of the total 47
or so.
Yeah, and so this year we're having 2 sessions on the junior lifeguard program because there's been such an interest, and we're got to credit Jim Pignato from the community school or the swimming pool, because he has pigtailed his lifeguard lifeguard training program into this. So these kids come out of this program, this junior lifeguard program, and they go into his springtime. I think they just got done a week ago. Program, and then they come to us and they're ready to work.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's more than just the lifeguard program. It truly is almost a year-round program anymore, in the sense that it takes a lot of work to get people prepared and there. And we kind of figure most of these kids are high school, college. We kind of figure that when we get a good lifeguard, we have them for 4 to 6 years, where before we used to have them 2 to 4 years. Then you lose them to internships and life. Yeah, hopefully, Right. But now that we're getting them in earlier and getting them in at the high school level through this program, we're going to have a lot more stable.
And you wouldn't be able to do this if the community pool weren't here, and these kids get some experience.
Absolutely. This island is tremendous when it comes to swimming. I'm a little prejudiced. My daughter and my son both swam, and all the way from the junior Dolphins on up. But when you go to a swim meet and you watch our kids swim versus kids from other schools, it's just incredible, the skill that our kids, especially the little ones,
to think, before the pool, a lot of Nantucket kids didn't even know how to swim.
Yeah, I mean, that would be shocking, being an island